Good afternoon, everyone. I have a few things at the top, then I'll get straight to your questions. First, on Libya. Yesterday, the last remnants of Libya's Gaddafi-era chemical weapons program arrived at a specialized destruction facility in Germany for destruction under international verification by the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. We thank Germany for undertaking this important mission, which was part of a robust international effort. The arrival of the chemicals in Germany also marks the final step towards the complete destruction of Libya's former chemical weapons program and ensures these precursors can never be used as chemical weapons, including by non-state actors. The United States fully supported Libya's request for international assistance to remove and destroy its remaining chemical weapon precursors through diplomatic support within the UN Security Council as well as the OPCW. State Department contributed $5 million, along with logistical support, to this international effort. The United States will continue to work with the OPCW and international partners to rid the world of the scourge of chemical weapons. Next, good news story. The United States is pleased to announce a contribution of nearly $37 million of humanitarian assistance towards the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees to support critical education gaps for refugees in 16 countries. This contribution, funded through the Department's Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration, will help support commitments made by refugee-hosting countries to increase the number of children accessing quality education by providing additional resources to UNHCR to work with host countries. This announcement is part of the U.S. government's commitments to the President's Leaders Summit on Refugees that President Obama is co-hosting September 20th, along with our international partners during the UN General Assembly in New York. Next, I draw your attention to a statement just released by Secretary Kerry on North Korea's nuclear test. I won't go through that. I'm sure we'll come to that in questions. And finally, I'd like to wish Matt Lee a very happy birthday, and we'll turn it over to you, Matt.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. Another year.
Indeed.
Let's see where to start here. I guess let's start with North Korea and the statement.
Sure.
It's pretty much the same reaction that everyone has been giving to this.
Yeah, I would say it was, all 5 parties for the 6-party talks to condemn. The international community has been very strong on
Right.
this.
So what is it that the administration is hoping it will get out of the UN? Does it plan to do anything unilaterally outside of the UN system in response?
Well, I'm not going to get ahead of our discussions at the UN. It's my understanding they meet today at 4:30, so we expect some sort of readout, some reaction from up there. We've been consistently clear that we will not accept North Korea as a nuclear state, nor will we accept North Korea's possession of nuclear weapons. The President, in his statement, detailed also our commitment to work with our international partners on those lines, and also reiterated our support to allies and partners in the region on their defense.
Right, but I mean, are you hoping that today's meeting at the UN will result in some kind of action, or are you prepared to let this go on?
No, we've called for action, and we're going to work with our international partners. Let's see where the UN Security Council goes today, Matt.
All right, and then I've raised this point before. You always say this about you're not going to accept North Korea as a nuclear power, but you do accept the fact that they just blew up a nuclear device.
Yeah, we've commented on their nuclear test, the second this year. You remember the last one in January.
Exactly. So, I mean, isn't it just, I don't understand how you can say that you won't accept that. I can see how you can say you won't accept their legitimacy as a, as a member of the nuclear club, but they clearly are.
Yeah, what I would say is that we won't stop our efforts on working to ensure that they come into compliance with their international obligations. We won't stop our efforts in working with our international partners to increase pressure on this very opaque regime in reaction to provocative acts like this.
Right, but the very fact that they blew up or tested a nuclear weapon means that they are a nuclear power. You might not like it, but when you say you can't accept it, I just don't.
Yeah, I think, it's one thing. We will not accept it. We will not stop our efforts to work.
Okay.
Yeah, I know we've got a lot on DPRK, so why don't we go, Janie?
Thank you, Elizabeth. And, is there any communication with the United States before North Korea tested nuclear?
Between the United States and North
Yes.
Korea? No.
Because they usually notice to U.S. and China the third.
I have
nuclear
nothing
test.
to read out on that,
But
no.
do you know, ever talk with the Chinese government?
You know, the
don't
Chinese
have
government
anything.
would speak to their own communications.
They have something.
I could not speak to that. The Chinese government would speak to that.
U.S. intelligence didn't know about this significant,
You know,
nuclear test.
Janie, as you know, we would never speak to intelligence matters from this podium, so I would dispute even the premise of your question.
But you knew, but
I'm not going to
nuclear
speak to
test.
intelligence matters. You know, we've been very clear, as the entire international community has, on our reaction to this very provocative action.
Do you know what size of this?
You know, I know that there's been a lot of discussion. There's been some independent think tankers speaking about that. I'm not in a position to exactly characterize the size of this.
Okay.
There have been reports recently.
I'm sorry, Goyle. Go ahead, Oren.
There have been reports recently that kind of lay out the extent of procurement of nuclear material through China by North Korea, through companies, North Korean companies that are operating in China. And you know, I guess I'm wondering whether what the United States is ready to do to prevent that or to stop that from happening.
Well, I would talk about the sanctions program that we recently put in place, which are the hardest sanctions that have been put in place in decades against this regime. You know, as I said to Matt at the top, we are committed to ensuring those sanctions are in place, and actually those sanctions work in this. We'll see where the UN Security Council goes this afternoon, but we are very aware that North Korea continues to seek, as we could tell, to develop this program, and we're very committed, along with our international partners, to take steps against it.
So the launcher that the North Koreans use for a lot of their missiles is a launcher that's provided by China, and it's a truck that's a missile launcher. Doesn't seem to have much of a dual use there. So, what's the these sanctions? China signed on to these sanctions also,
did.
but they appear to be providing equipment to the North Koreans that they could use in this way. So what's the United States? What kind of leverage does the United States have to affect the Chinese behavior?
Well, I would say a couple of things on that. One, I would point you exactly to the statement the Chinese released themselves after this test. You know, a very strong condemnation of this activity. You know, as we seek to make sure that these sanctions work, we remain in close contact with our partners, not only in the region, but around the world. You know, in terms of specific procurement actions, specific equipment, I'm just not going to speak to that. Leslie, on DPRK?
Yeah, wasn't just aware of, were there any signs ahead of time that North Korea was preparing this?
You know, I can't speak to intelligence matters.
Because there was what they call a sniffer radiation spy plane. There were tweets overnight about this, saying that they were flying over the peninsula at the time. So, but were there any signs that you had, not speaking to your intelligence, that this was a possibility?
Yeah, I'm just not going to speak to that, Leslie. Go ahead.
Secretary of Defense Ash Carter in Norway said that China bears responsibility for these developments. Is that an assessment that you agree with?
So I haven't seen the Secretary's remarks. I'd let the Pentagon speak to that. You know, as we've said, we remain in close contact with all of our partners on this. We are committed to making sure that the sanctions that we have in place are implemented and enforced. We will continue to have those discussions. We will discuss it at the UN this afternoon, and then we'll move forward.
Well, it seems the Secretary Carter, I mean, this frustration with China seems pretty palpable. Is that something that you see in this building as well, that there is a frustration with?
I think what we see is, you know, an opaque regime undertaking provocative actions in violation of its international commitments. You know, what we continue to do is have the discussions with our partners internationally to take steps to close this space through sanctions, through cooperation, through dialogue, and so that we can reduce the possibility of these actions happening.
How would you assess?
I'm sorry, hold on, let's go to Nike.
Follow-up, Elizabeth. Secretary Kerry mentioned that he spoke to his counterpart from Japan and
He did.
South Korea, and clearly he was speaking to Lavrov. So my question is, did he speak to his counterpart from China? It's just a little bit that he speak to all the members from six-party talks, but
Yeah, I don't have a call with his Chinese counterpart to read out as of right now. Okay.
and then in the statement that he just issued, that U.S. is open to authentic and credible talks. Is there any discussion in the building that to maybe adopt a different approach?
No, we've consistently remained clear that we believe that we are open, as you mentioned, to authentic and credible negotiations. We believe that's the path forward. But, underlining authentic and credible within the six-party framework.
And then Secretary Kerry also mentioned that DPRK repeatedly violates its obligation under the UN Security Council resolution, which is required by the UN Charter, like any member should abide by the resolution. Is there any discussion to kick them out of the UN?
I have nothing to preview on that. Go ahead.
To China's role in all of this, I mean, how would you assess China's pressuring of North Korea and the fact that what their cooperation so far hasn't allowed for prevention of these types of
We've
provocative
spoken
actions?
about this a lot from this podium. I think we've spoken with you a lot about this. The Chinese came out very strongly after this incident, condemned this action. We will continue to engage in dialogue with our Chinese counterparts, both up at the UN this afternoon, as well as bilaterally. The international community is united on this. So let's see where we go this afternoon, and then hopefully we'll have more to read out to you soon. Matt, are we going to switch? Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Michelle. Are we still on DPRK?
No. Switch to
Okay,
CEDAW.
let's finish up DPRK.
One more DPRK, then quick.
Okay, are you DPRK too?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do these two and then we'll switch.
Okay, the UN Security Council resolution has existing sanctions against North Korea. There are so many sanctions every time they launch the missiles. So which one is which? And can you expect United States by themselves more strong sanctions against North Korea?
Jeannie, we never preview our sanctions actions before they happen. And it's, specifically at the UN, as I said, they're meeting today at 4:30. We'll have that discussion there. Let's see where that goes. Okay?
So Kyle Cardine with Fuji TV. So with some timing, the special representative for North Korean policy, Sung Kim,
Yep.
is going to be in Japan and South Korea this weekend. Obviously, this recent test is going to be on the table for discussion.
Absolutely.
But what else is going to be discussed at those meetings?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I'd also point out that Assistant Secretary Russell is also in Tokyo as well. So as you mentioned, our special representative for North Korea policy, Sung Kim, is actually traveling in the region, both Japan and the Republic of Korea. He is specifically there to discuss North Korean policy. So, full stop.
Is there going to be any discussion about the no first strike policy at all?
Yeah, he's going to be there speaking about North Korea writ large. I'm not going to get into, before those meetings, the exact details of those conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are we going to go to Syria? Is that where you're going?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Michelle.
From Geneva.
I
to-
do not.
Why?
Because I would say that the talks continue. As soon as we have a readout, we'll provide that with you.
And do you have any idea if they were able to solve the main?
Again,
Talking
Michelle,
points.
I'm not going to get ahead of the discussions of the secretary in Geneva. We hope to have something to offer soon, but it's not for me to get ahead of that.
And they will continue tomorrow? Or
Michelle, again, the talks continue. I don't have a timeline. I don't have a decision or a resolution. We'll see where they go, and then we'll have something to read out for you. Samir,
On Sudan?
I'm sorry, we're going to do that. Go ahead, Matt.
Did you see this happen? At least I think it happened yesterday. a group of about 70 or more than 70, actually, aid agencies have said that they're halting their cooperation with the UN in Syria due to concerns about UN, I don't know, complicity is the right word, but due to the ties between the UN and the Assad regime. Do you have anything to say about that?
We do, and thanks for the question. We take very seriously the concerns raised by Syrian non-governmental organizations in their open letter. We recognize the mechanism they referred, the whole of Syria mechanism, is far from perfect. However, we do believe it is an essential tool for a coordinated humanitarian response in Syria. We remain focused on the leading driving factor of this crisis. Many of the very serious concerns raised by these NGOs are directly attributable to the Assad regime's blatant disregard for the humanitarian crisis it helped create. In our assessment, non-participation in the whole of Syria approach is counterproductive to efforts to deliver aid to the millions of people across Syria. We note that over the last 5 years, the UN staff and the partners have done extraordinary work in a very complex, a very dangerous situation. They've worked tirelessly to deliver this aid to the millions of people in Syria. They also must operate with the permission of the host government, as we've talked about many times here. The whole of Syria mechanism helps the UN coordinate these operations. It also helps mitigate the dangers that these humanitarian workers face.
Right. Are you concerned that this is going to have a significant impact on deliveries?
I think because the letter just came in, we're still assessing really what that impact would be. Of course, we're concerned when you have frontline NGOs, speaking about this, raising concerns, saying that they're not going to cooperate. Our focus, as we've said many times from this, is getting the aid to where it needs to go.
Right, but you said that this was counterproductive, not for them not to participate. Does that mean that you're telling them that you think that they should change their minds and should resume?
We think that the whole of Syria approach, while it has flaws that we fully recognize, is the best way to get the aid to the people who need it.
Right.
So we do believe it's counterproductive.
Yes, but so I just wanted to make
Yes.
clear, you want them to rescind their decision.
We want them to refocus efforts on getting aid to people.
Well, do you
Yes.
want them to cooperate with the UN or not?
Yes.
So you want them to change their decision?
We would like them to cooperate back with UN.
All right.
Leslie, anything? Okay. You know what? Let's go to Sudan.
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Media reports in Israel stated that Israeli officials urged the U.S. during talks with Undersecretary Shannon in Jerusalem last week to bolster relations with Sudan after it cut its relations with Iran. Do you have any reaction to this information?
So what I would say is that the U.S. and the government of Sudan, regularly discuss the full range of issues that do impact our bilateral relationship. In our engagements, we primarily focus on U.S. engagement with Sudan, which focuses on our desire to see the end of conflict in all areas of Sudan, ensure humanitarian access, and see Sudan play a positive role in regional stability. So that's really where our focus is on that. Okay.
But can you confirm the information coming from Israel?
I'll just speak broadly on it. I'm not going to confirm that, no.
Stay in Israel just for a second.
Of course.
You may have seen, I think you have seen, this video that Prime Minister Netanyahu has put out today on social media talking about settlements and talking about the Palestinians wanting to have a state that has no Jews in it at all, and saying that this is ethnic cleansing. And he also complains that, he says that demand is outrageous, but that it's even more outrageous that the world doesn't find it outrageous. And then he says some otherwise enlightened countries even promote this outrage. So I'm just wondering, do you see yourselves, does the U.S., this administration, see itself as a target of this accusation? And whether it does or not, what do you make of the general thought expressed?
So we have seen the Israeli Prime Minister's video. We obviously strongly disagree with the characterization that those who oppose settlement activity or view it as an obstacle to peace are somehow calling for ethnic cleansing of Jews from the West Bank. We believe that using that type of terminology is inappropriate and unhelpful. Settlements are a final status issue that must be resolved in negotiations between the parties. We share the view of every past U.S. administration and the strong consensus of the international community that ongoing settlement activity is an obstacle to peace. We continue to call on both sides to demonstrate with actions and policies a genuine commitment to the two-state solution. We have repeatedly expressed our strong concerns that trends on the ground continue to move in the opposite direction. Let's be clear. The undisputed fact is that already this year, thousands of settlement units have been advanced for Israelis in the West Bank. Illegal outposts and unauthorized settlement units have been retroactively legalized. More West Bank land has been seized for exclusive Israeli use, and there has been a dramatic escalation of demolitions, resulting in over 700 Palestinian structures destroyed, displacing more than 1,000 Palestinians. As we've said many times before, this does raise real questions about Israel's long-term intentions in the West Bank.
So you're not a big fan of the video, I think.
Correct.
So have you made your, not you personally, but has the administration made its feelings clear to, other than your comments just now? To
Yes,
the Israelis?
we are engaging in direct conversations with the Israeli government on this.
And I mean, is there anything that you can do? I mean, he said this, he apparently believes it, and it's a pretty strong sentiment. Even though you disagree with it, I mean, what have you asked him to do? I mean, have you asked him to walk it back at all? Or?
I'm not going to get into our diplomatic discussions. What I would say is unhelpful. It's inappropriate. We'll have our conversation with our Israeli allies and friends, and we'll see where that goes.
Do you
One
believe?
second.
Do you believe that he was referring to the United States?
We
talked about some
would
otherwise
disagree
enlightened
with his
countries.
broad assessment or the broad assertion, I won't say assessment, that members of the international community who have expressed concerns on settlements are somehow expressing this view.
All right. But
Nick? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But you don't dispute that you might be otherwise enlightened.
I am confident in our interpretation of his comments. Nick?
What level are those discussions happening at? Who's doing the discussing?
Yeah, I'm not going to read out those, but we are in direct contact with the Israelis. Are we on this one? To gender?
Have you got any official question or a request from the EU? Because you won't talk about the diplomatic, about the most of the destruction that happens by Israel is the EU-funded projects. So EU is really so have they officially, reached out to you?
I don't have anything to read out on contact with the EU on that specific issue to gender. Are we still in this?
Saudi Arabia.
Sure, go ahead, Michelle.
Congress passed the bill today, letting 9/11 victims sue Saudi Arabia. How do you view this bill? And secondly, how will it affect the U.S.-Saudi relations?
So we are aware of the House vote. If you're looking for specific comment from the administration, I would refer you back to Josh Earnest's comments at the White House on May 17th. The White House position has not changed. While we remain absolutely committed to assisting the families of 9/11 victims, and we sympathize with the motivation behind the legislation, we have serious concerns over the potential negative implications for U.S. interests and our national security.
How it will affect, or will it affect the relations?
The U.S. relationship with Saudi Arabia is strong. It's based on a wide variety of interests. We'll continue to work with the Saudi government as we work to pursue global and regional shared interests on that. We continue to have conversations with the Saudis on this, but our relationship is strong.
Have you heard any complaint from Saudi Arabia after the bill passing?
For Saudi comment on the legislation, I'd refer you to the government.
Are you in
the
discussion
kingdom.
with them?
We've been in discussion. We talked to
Today?
I have nothing to read out from today. I think this vote just happened.
Thank you.
Okay, are we still on Saudi?
Yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead.
As we approach this 15th anniversary of 9/11, which is connected or related to Saudi Arabia,
Well-
15 of the 19 terrorists were from Saudi Arabia. That's what I meant. What we learned after 15 years, and what message you think you are sending to those who support terrorists or finance or train in the name of religion?
You know, it's a big
And
question.
first, I'm sorry
Yeah.
to bother you. Sorry to interrupt you. And first of all, my personal tribute to the U.S. and international community for this terrible 9/11 incident in in New York, and also to the families and victims. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Gail. You know, it's a somber anniversary. Not only the events of September 11th, but we also remember those who were killed in Benghazi. I think we'll have more to say on the actual anniversary itself. You know, one thing I think that the President and Secretary Kerry have both spoken about as we take a look at the events of 9/11 is the issue of resiliency. You know, how the American people, you know, together with the international community, reacted and recovered from the events of 9/11. This is something, you know, we remember the victims of that day every single day here at the State Department and certainly across the U.S. government. And we will work, you know, on their behalf as well as on behalf of the American people to fight terror.
You think 9/11 is the part of this, what we see today, ISIL or ISIS came from 9/11, or where people may have not forgotten 9/11, of course, but now they are focusing on global terrorism or threat is from the ISIL. So,
You know, I think that there's, you know, books written about the genesis of Daesh, as well as certainly about the attacks of 9/11. Where I would say is that, you know, terrorism, as we take a look at both Daesh as well as 9/11, it comes in many forms. And as the international community, I think what we do find is our strength is standing together as we fight this in whatever form violent extremism comes.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Lalit.
I have one question on India's
Of course.
membership to NSG, Nuclear Supplier Group.
I'm sorry, one more time, Lalit.
India's membership to Nuclear Supplier Group.
Of course.
Secretary Kerry was in China recently on the sidelines of G20. You know, China is the only country which has been objecting to India's membership. Did Secretary Kerry speak to his Chinese counterparts or Chinese leadership on this issue?
So I don't have those diplomatic conversations to read out, but I think, as you know very well, and we've been very clear, since 2010, the United States has made clear our support for India's full membership in the 4 multilateral export control regimes. We continue to believe India is ready for the NSG.
But did U.S. take up this issue with the Chinese?
You know, in the last meeting, the NSG participating governments, as you know, did not reach a consensus decision. We spoke about it at the time to admit any new applicant into the group. We were disappointed in the outcome. We continue, though, and will be continued to work constructively with India and with members of the NSG on India's accession in the months ahead. But on the particular conversations on China, because I know you're going to come back and ask, I have nothing to read out on that.
Just last one.
Sure.
Do you know, is there any progress made after the last meeting on NSC?
One more time, I'm sorry.
Do you know any further progress that has been made on NSC membership application?
Well, you know that discussions within that group are confidential within that group, so I'm not going to read out. But the United States remains committed. We believe India is ready for full membership. We will work towards that goal.
But based on that conversation, how far you're comfortable that India would get this membership?
You know, I'm not going to forecast. It's a consensus decision. Of course.
Earlier today, the last remaining residents of Camp Liberty left for Albania. I'm wondering if it's something that you guys have been working hard on, I know.
We have, and
What-
thank you for recognizing that. Today, 2 aircraft chartered by UNHCR carried the last members of the MEK out of Iraq to safe haven in Albania. The rescue of more than 3,000 MEK members is a culmination of a major diplomatic initiative by the United States in support of UNHCR's efforts to relocate them. We are grateful to the government of Iraq for facilitating the departure of the MEK, and we are especially appreciative of the extraordinary efforts of the Albanian government, the Albanian Prime Minister Rama, to welcome these people who are in need of international protection. These actions, we believe, are in the best traditions of the generosity and tolerance of the Albanian people. And you guys, one more and then that's it?
Yeah, recently Donald Trump said that North Korea is China's baby. So China should solve the problem. What do you comment on his?
I wouldn't comment on comments made by U.S. presidential candidates. Thanks, Jeannie. Thank you.